but I'm so happy and proud to be here. I want to thank you all for being here. It is Wednesday, WINS, and Shamrock, DAY. I think that everyone needs a day of the week to realize what their wins are because sometimes we can feel so overwhelmed and challenged and out on the battlefield. So let's take a moment to give Wednesday a hand, Wednesday. So, what we're going to talk about this morning is we're going to talk about addiction. Let's talk about addiction. So, what that means is that that's from that's not me to I need. A lot of people don't understand addiction. They just think about it as drugs or alcohol. But addiction can be so many things. Addiction can be addiction to shopping, addiction to food, addiction to gambling, addiction to sex, pornography. Hey, Raven, it's good to see you this morning. How are you doing today? So there's so many addictions out there. I looked on an addiction website and there's well over 30 something addictions. There's so many 12-step programs, and some of them are 12-step programs geared to the person with the problem, and some of them are geared to the person who struggles with the person with the problem. Excellent. I'm glad that you're here and I'm glad that you're great. It is Wednesday. Can you think of one win that you have today? Because I think a lot of people don't even think about their wins. And so I think that it's great to have a day that, we can think of the wins. Last week I talked about where Wednesday came from. It was from the old god, the Woden. It came from Woden, the Celtic like stuff, and then Odin, and then it was, John London. Hello, it's good to see you as always. And it's not bedtime. How about that? So we're going to dive deeper into addiction today. Y'all know how I am, is we'll do a topic and then take it down, kind of break it down and analyze it. So good to see you this morning. And I know that some people can't make it because of work in the United States and what have you, but, talking about that addiction and growing from that's not me. We talked about denial, that sea of denial on Monday. Of course, my notes were lost. Thank you, John London, for hanging in there, for everyone who was supportive, because usually my notes are not lost. So Monday night, we opened up the conversation that can be uncomfortable because most of us have a pretty specific picture in our heads of what addiction looks like. There's a transference of addiction, and that's what a lot of people don't talk about and a lot of people don't think about. And either whether you are struggling with an addicted person yourself or you yourself, a lot of people can spot it, but they don't realize they might have it and just in another form. And so that's what I wanted to open up the floor for on Monday, is sometimes people talk about other people having a problem, but don't realize that maybe they have a problem. A lot of us learn to esteem ourselves. And if we struggle with addiction, we probably are lacking in esteem, but it might not even be our own fault. It might have just been a learned behavior because they didn't exactly pass out, handbooks on how to esteem ourselves. We were told certain things, and I don't know about y'all, but when our parents did try to, tell us things that maybe would give us some esteem, we're like, well, that was from back in their days. That's not today. So we talked about the part and the role that evolution plays in this as well. And that's what we talk about here. So a lot of us get that specific picture in our head when we hear the word addiction. I've got my notes here because I love and value your comments. And I try to be mindful of your time. So here we grow. A lot of people think when they think of addiction, alcohol, drugs, narcotics, and if that's not your experience, it's pretty easy to think, oh, that's not me. Hey, Rosa, how are you? Those are pretty obvious addictions with some pretty, obvious outside unmanageability. But what about food? Food is an addiction too. And I know that that's one of the most hardest addictions, and even codependency to a degree is an addiction. And so, the food addiction, though, let's talk about that a minute. A lot of people just judge people and like the same thing in our story that we talked about on Monday night. It's about somebody who was judging somebody for having a prescription drug problem, but they had, the obesity problem. And so then other people may say, why can't they just stop using drugs? Or why can't they just stop drinking? And then if you're struggling with an obesity problem or food addiction, then it's like, well, why can't I stop eating? And instead of looking at that, It's easy to rationalize and justify. I get it, because one's legal and one's, some parts are not legal in the or drugs and alcohol. So being able to not rationalize and justify in that sea of denial our own issues with addiction. So a lot of people, may say, that's not me. That's not me. And it may not be. But here's the thing is that when we start to look at addiction and how it comes up in many ways, and thank you, Raven. I know you were here Friday night and we talked about food. We just talked about food, but smoking, shopping. Because in that transference of addiction, I had it. I had the food addiction, then the drug addiction, then the alcohol addiction, then, and the smoking was one of my addictions too. I had them all at one time. And then, as soon as I got sober, I went to shopping. When I quit smoking, I went to shopping. I started buying candles and lotions to make my hands smell good and my house smell better. And then there's sex or pornography. Now that one, I can't say that I might have stayed in a relationship too long because of sex. Anybody here done that? Nisha, I would love to send you a rose, but I'm currently using it right now. Okay. Well, Marshall Blackbeard, Teach Blackbeard, it's good to see you today. So some people don't realize that relationships are addicting. And this is what I'm talking about when I talk about the codependency, because sometimes we compromise ourselves for relationships, just like I said. So, a lot of times it may be the sex, why people compromise themselves in a relationship and stay, even though they're not being treated well, as they've confused sex with love, because then love is an addiction also. So a lot of people don't know that, but when I worked on my codependency, I also worked on love addiction. So y'all please keep your comments nice in here. If you don't, I'll have to put you out, because I don't want you distracting those that are here that really, are appreciative of this content. I want you to stay if you'd like to, but we have to stay focused on the content. We don't talk about religion, politics, my age, or dating status, and we certainly don't say ugly things to anybody in here. Okay, I'm not doing this today. I don't have a moderator right now, so bye-bye. Bye-bye. So, okay, because I need to stay focused, y'all. I value your time, and so I'm trying to stay focused. So I'm not going to be playing with this stuff. Some people are addicted to chaos. Chaos. And a lot of this has a lot to do with our central nervous system. Hi, Pastor Simpa. A lot of this has to do with our nervous system when we're addicted to chaos. And we haven't been able to acknowledge our thoughts and our feelings. Our nervous system may be running wild, trying to anticipate. I can't say your name, but hello. A lot of us, our nervous systems may not, it will be anticipating and strategizing all the time, expecting the other shoe to fall, or thinking something's going to happen. That's being addicted to chaos, catastrophizing. Some people are addicted to being needed. That's how they get their self-worth, is if somebody needs them. They may, it can go to extremes. There's harmony in between these things. So this whole segment on addiction is how we can learn to have harmony in between, because there's a part of being needed where we could rationalize and justify and saying, I'm just being charitable, I'm just being helpful. But see, the thing is if we don't understand our why and our intention and motivation, then we may be compromising ourselves. So we look at, I have to ask some of my clients, well, what's the payoff? Because there has to be a payoff. McGlove, thank you for popping in here a few minutes. Hey, Magic by TJ. This channel is about mindset, life coaching. I'm a mindset coach and a life coach, and charity can be toxic. You're right, Goffman. So, and I specialize in addiction recovery, codependency, and grief. But we talk about a lot of things here because, life is life-ing right now. And so we just try to be a supportive community here. And there's a lot of great people here. So if you like this content, I hope that you'll consider liking and subscribing, you all. Thank you. Pastor Simpa, you're always scared someone's going to attack you. Have you been attacked before? Because that would certainly, make you, that's the evidence. Because human beings, we're always looking for evidence. This is the kind of stuff we talk about on here. Human beings are always looking for evidence, signs, things like this. All right, Alex, well, you're welcome, to stay, or you're welcome to go. Thank you, though, for being here. All right. So, Pastor Simpa, I can't even relax right now. It sounds like your nervous system may be in overdrive. Goffman, non-attachment and the recognition of impermanence helps release fear. Absolutely. See, that's the thing, is the human experience is we are always afraid. That fear is that we're not going to get what we want, or we're going to lose what we have, right? That's my experience. My good news is things are appearing that a better paying job is to be started Monday. See, you are a winner on this Wednesday, my. I'm so happy for you. See? You just don't know. We just don't know till we know. Congratulations. Y'all, if you don't follow McGlove, he's a very important member of this community. And if you would like to give him a follow, he collects things and he shows you things, his adventures. So, kitty cat lover. And I'm not a vegan teacher. Thank you, Pastor Simpa. Yeah, I've been attacked before, many times before. Yeah, so I imagine you're already embraced for an attack to come. And so healing that, that fear. Have you taken any martial arts? And, let me get this. It's not to learn how to fight people back. It's to learn how to defend yourself. And the thing is what I learned in martial arts is I've taken martial arts and I haven't had to fight anybody, but I do have a confidence that if I did have to fight somebody, I could fight somebody. But that even just the way that we get to take our focus off of the fear, that helps a lot with your nervous system. Reiki helps a lot with your nervous system too. Magic by TJ, liked and subscribed. If you like magic tricks, come see me. I can't wait to see you again. Well, let me write your name down and I will subscribe to you too, because that's what we do here, is we support people here. So thank you, Magic by TJ. I appreciate you. I'm writing it down, because it happens for real if I write it down. There we go. Because I may go on talking, and this is why I have notes, though, because I can go off in left field. John London saw that the other night. I lost my notes, and it's like, I can't stay focused. I have to have my topics. It's all in order. So thank you so much, Magic by TJ McGlove. Thank you. Thank you. All right, Victor. You are very welcome. Hello, Beast Moon. Pastor, I'm usually attacked in psychological ways. I've heard of these psychological attacks. And yeah, definitely, maybe, have you seen it's not my business, but maybe a psychologist would help with a psychological attack. I'm a coach, and if, I have my information's in the description box if anybody's interested in coaching. I'm a first-degree black belt through the American Taekwondo. It builds life skills. It really does. It does. I took American Karate too, and we started off with that, but we ended up with Black Belt Schools of America with Greg Silva, and yeah. So I'm a second-degree black belt. You're very welcome, but I stopped at second degree. But I still have the knowledge, because there's a lot of wisdom and a lot of being able to be in our bodies. That's the thing why I suggested martial arts, is because it helps us to be in our bodies. And I learned in martial arts how to use both sides of my body, which made my mind, I believe, to be able to use both sides of my mind. So it really expanded my opportunities. It helped me to be able to look in the mirror, even with that self-esteem. Now, my self-esteem took a while to keep growing. So we're going to talk about that today, because I am an addict. I've got 29 years clean and sober. And I started taking the martial arts when I got clean and sober, because I just didn't want to drink again. I just did not. And so I wasn't sure if a 12-step program alone was going to work, because I knew I had a problem. So I also took martial arts because I didn't think I would probably drink if I was doing martial arts. So it was very helpful in my journey. Well, hello, Johnny. Good morning. It's good to see you. Beast Moon. Okay, Marshall. I'm not paying attention to these negative comments. I'm physically very strong, but too stupid. I'm not afraid of physical confrontation, but verbal confrontation. A lot of people are afraid of that. Conflict and confrontation. I used to be afraid of conflict and confrontation too. So I totally understand that, Marshall Teach Blackbeard. So I totally get it. Yeah, good morning, Binod. It's good to see you as always. Psychologist doesn't stop other people from reaching me. Well, I hate that. I hate that. I'm just now hearing about this kind of stuff, and I can't tell you that I understand how to, do it. So I don't know. But I feel for you. I really do. Rob Banks. Yes, my ex was so annoying. Words can. Have you healed from that? Because like you're probably your next is going to be like your ex if you don't heal from it. I'm just saying. Back lover. Hey Stacy, I'm new here. What are we doing? We're talking about mindset, and today this week we're talking about addiction, because if you don't have addiction problems yourself, you probably know somebody who has, and we're talking about the ways that addiction shows up in our lives and the different things we're addicted to. Some people, like I said, I stopped at being needed. Some people are addicted to control. Control. Y'all know people who are addicted to control? Some people are addicted to comparison. That might be you. I know for me, for a while, it was comparison. And so social media, a lot of people are taught to compare, So social media, a lot of people can be addicted to social media, the scrolling. When working with couples, I oftentimes suggest to couples to turn their phones, off, or get rid of their phones for. Hold on, somebody's going in timeout. I'm not dealing with this today. So I suggest to people to turn their phones off at least 30 minutes before bedtime so couples can talk to each other, because I know, a lot of couples are in the phone. So scrolling, sometimes people are doom scrolling, looking for that evidence of doom. And it's like, we're going to only feel doom when we do that. Binod, it took a lot of discipline and time to get where you are today. It sure did. It did take a lot of time, but what else would I be doing? I had to learn this. My dad used to tell me when I was a teenager, basically, not a little girl, because I minded pretty well, but as a teenager, when he would ask me to do something, I would complain and argue, and he would say, Stacy, in the time you've been complaining and arguing, you could have done this, Magic by TJ. Whenever you stopped, you are still as pretty as the sunrise. Have a magical day. I will be back to visit often. Glad I found you. I'm glad you found me too, Magic by TJ. Thank you so much for subscribing and liking this video, and anyone else who finds this information valuable, I thank you too. And please like and subscribe. Thanks so much, Magic by TJ. You have an amazing day. Pastor Simpa. Isn't it funny though how people just get away with manipulation all the time? Yeah, a lot of people do. But then, see, I get a choice. See, this is what, working on all these things helped me, is to be able to choose if I want, I have a choice of whether I'm going to be able to be manipulated or not, And so it's all about empowering our choices. However, in addiction, like our third step talks about making a decision, because a lot of us, the addiction made the decision for us. With food addiction, a lot of drug addiction, alcohol addiction, and some of these others, shopping, people may say, and sex, people may say, I'm not going to do this again. But what? They do it again. So when we get conscious of our decisions, because the addiction itself will give us that drive, and that drive is from the ego oftentimes. And it's not that the ego is bad, it's that the ego is our protector. And so in the addiction, we sometimes are being driven by that. My mates are addicted to adult content. Can't really get them to quit. Hello, back lover. I hear you. A lot of people are. And a lot of this, people say, I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm going to stop, because addictions usually cost money. And it can, that can be bad, have a bad effect on our wallets, but also it affects our bodies. I know that with my dad, he struggled with addiction, and he used to say, if I was going to live this long, if I knew I was going to live this long, I would have taken better care of myself, and so, hi, Tanish. Thank you so much, Beast Moon. Thank you, Beast Moon. Binod, comparison is the thief of joy, and what you have, and be grateful for enjoying what you have. Some people have it worse. Absolutely, absolutely, Binod. And it's not only the thief of joy, it's the thief of self-esteem. And I used to have it. I used to see, I've told y'all before, I used to see somebody sitting at the table and I would think, oh, how interesting they are. And because they were interesting, I didn't think I was interesting. And I had to learn the unlimitedness. Is that somebody can be interesting and I can be interesting too. So it's even jealousy. Comparison leads to jealousy. Your dad was the same too, Beast Moon? Yeah. Pastor Sampa, Tai Chi does work. It really does. Being able to be in your body and present and watching your hands, Yeah. Hi, Ashley. It's good to see you today, Raven. Procrastination is my problem. Unfortunately, lost my own drive. Having a mate who is overwhelming mentally curbed my personality for him. It takes a while to heal for that, because I had that too. And it takes a while to heal, but it's possible. Tanish, can I subscribe, you beautiful lady? I hope you subscribe, Tanish, and please like this video. All right, we don't talk about my dating status on here. Pastor Simpa, that's not true. You don't choose to be manipulated always. I know what you're saying and what spiritual teachings say, but people people don't always have control over their, no, they don't. I agree, they don't have control over their subconscious. But I used to get manipulated a lot, and I don't get manipulated a lot anymore because I'm okay. You know, I've had to look at a lot of the things where I was manipulative. I used to be manipulative, you know, because I wanted people to like me. People pleasing is a manipulation. A lot of people don't realize people pleasing is a manipulation, because we tend to compromise ourselves so that other people will like us, but yet we don't know ourselves. Oh, bike lover, any advice for preparing for the infantry? I do not have advice really. Just, you know, just breathe, darling. Just breathe, because I'm sure that you're going to be pushed a lot preparing for the, you know, getting ready for the infantry. And just breathe, darling. I always tell people, breathe, pray, and say, I don't know, because it's an adventure, right? It's an adventure, and I'm excited for you. But yeah. I am from America. I'm from Fort Worth, Texas, but I'm sitting in near beautiful Cancun. Raven, people pleasing is something I need to work on. Yes, because we don't really feel like we're fully living our life when we're people pleasing, do we, Raven? I know that I didn't, because I felt like I would like people please and do whatever everybody else wanted to do. And then I would be like, we never get to do what I want to do. Then it'd be like, well, what do you want to do? And it'd be like, I don't know. So I just would suggest, Raven, to you to take yourself out on dates right now to find out what your likes are, to be kind to yourself. Take yourself out. Take yourself out for the walks, you know, and think about and ponder, you know, what do I want? Hello, Strength of Battery. It's good to see you, darling. Tanish, why you sound so intelligent? I feel dumb in front of you. Now, look, whatever intelligence I have doesn't take from your intelligence, Tanish. See, I just said that. I had to learn that too. I totally understand you may feel that way, but I used to think, because, you know, just like I just said, I used to think because somebody was interesting that I wasn't interesting. And you're interesting. You're intelligent in your own way. Birdie baby. All right. Thank you, Strength Battery. So even constantly looking for what's going wrong and what might happen next, it's addictive too. That's what I'm saying, anticipating and strategizing. And typically our nervous system is in overdrive because we're preparing. People pleasing is self-suppression, but it's also other people's responsibility not to take advantage of that. Well, that don't mean that they won't. It don't mean that they won't, Pastor Simpa. It would be nice if they did, but they won't. So we have to have boundaries. Boundaries will help with that. Thank you, back lover. I appreciate that. So, Tanish, thank you. Any help with going within more? That breathe and pray and say, I don't know, help me go within, you know, to be, and we're going to do a breathing exercise at the end of this morning. Hey, Prakash. I believe a lot of things, so that's kind of a blanket question for me, but thank you for asking. But I believe a lot of things. I believe in unlimitedness. And see, I used to, before I dealt with my addiction, before I dealt with my codependency, before I dealt with my grief, I used to live a very limited life when I had only one belief system. Tanish, your smile is... thank you. I appreciate that. Hello, Shadion. It's good to see you this morning. Thank you, Prakash. You're only 17? Well, that's good. I wish I could learn what I'm teaching now when I was 17. I went to the School of Hard Knocks, back lovers, but I think that this is going to be great, you know, and just to be safe. Just breathe, pray, and say, I don't know. Boundaries are nice in theory, but people love to cross them. They sure do. But then I have a choice whether I'm going to associate with that person or whether I'm going to not associate with that person. I don't have to respond to everybody who wants to come at me with a fight or with conflict and confrontation. There is conflict and confrontation in life, but holding my ground and, just responding to it and not reacting to it. See, I saw people very reactive growing up. And so I would think that conflict and confrontation meant the brawl was going to be on, or that something bad was going to happen if I experienced conflict and confrontation. My whole central nervous system had that expectation, and I had to learn to change that expectation. I like a lot of songs. That would be hard to say too. I will watch this later. I need to study for my exams. All right, thank you. I'm glad you were here, Marshall Teach Blackbeard, and good luck on your exams, okay? All right, thank you. So now we're going to look at the sea of denial that we talked about on Monday, which, it kind of got lost. But that place we can all swim into when something gets too close to home. Even when someone suggested to me that I was codependent, and I was like, no, 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 no. And then I got the book, Codependent No More. And as I was reading it, there was times I'd be like, and then I go, no, no. I'm not ChatGPT, and I don't know everything. Thank you, though, Tanish. So when we talked about the sea of denial on Monday, we talked about I'm not addicted. I can stop whatever I want. It's not really a problem, and everybody does it, and at least I'm not doing that, So, I'm an addict. I quit using everything. I don't smoke weed. I don't drink a glass of wine. I don't do any of that. And when my kids were teenagers, my son, he wanted me to get high with him. And a lot of the parents were getting high with them, but I was not getting high with them, And so I just had to tell, okay, I just had to tell, them no. And so not everybody does it. You're addicted to mobile. A lot of people are addicted to mobile now. So I think one of the most important things that we established on Monday, that this isn't about judging people, that a lot of people have an it. And we sometimes are easier to spot other people's its than our own its. But I just really don't like judgmentalness. There's discernment, which means, that if somebody's trying to violate my boundaries, I get to discern and make a choice that I'm not going to associate with them or do anything with them because that's not comfortable for me, and I'm not going to subject myself to feeling uncomfortable for somebody else's happiness. So, Raven, I hope that helps because that's something I had to learn. But, yeah. So that's discerning because I can feel sorry for that person's pain. I can feel like, okay, I understand they have pain, but I don't have to judge them. I don't have to make it worse because I think most human beings, one of their biggest fears until they do some healing work is being judged, because a lot of people were trained not to feel judged except by source, or whatever. And some people felt judged even as I talked about on Monday or last week about, sometimes that reinforces that, the belief systems. We have the belief systems of our parents, when we're born, then the church, and then we go to school and we got the kids with their belief systems, with their parents and their church, and then it just keeps escalating, and that's how we lose ourselves sometimes. Because you were born worthy, you were born whole, you were born valuable and divine. It's just that we forget trying to fit in. I did anyway. Thank you, Jonathan. I'm so happy that you love this. I hope that I think you've subscribed, right? And that you all, if you like this, please give it a like. So it's about becoming more educated and more honest, you see, because in that sea of denial, we tend to not want to look at the negative aspects of ourselves. Thank you. We tend to not want to look at the negative aspects of ourselves. We might have learned to look at the negative aspects of somebody else so that we could navigate through life, and that might have been how we learned to esteem ourselves. That's how I learned to esteem myself. That was a learned behavior in my early belief system. Is that the bar didn't have to be too high if I compared myself to somebody else, because I could choose that, well, they got it worse than I do. So we need to make sure that when we have gratitude, that it's not that we're just always focused on somebody that we're, somebody else has it worse. Yes, they do have it worse. I am so grateful for the freedom that I have. A lot of people, though, don't even realize the freedom that they have. And when we're in addiction, we don't realize the freedom that we have. My being able to address my addiction brought me a whole new level of freedom. So it's because we can very quick recognize someone else's addiction while completely missing what is happening in our own lives. And sometimes we judge people because they miss the mark differently than we do, right? Because a lot of us are told you're born in original sin, so we're already doomed, So it's like other people, we may be watching for other people to sin. Sometimes the different denominations start attacking each other, even, and so that may develop this superiority that, like, well, I'm doing it better than you are. And that's why we don't talk about religion here, because everybody's entitled to their belief system as long as we don't hurt somebody else. So because there's a word we all use all the time that, in addiction, I need. And so a lot of us don't even listen to ourselves saying I need. It's become so routine and habit, or maybe even a learned behavior. So we'll say when we're feeling stressed out, or we're feeling like we're not liking our experience in life right now, we'll say, I need a cigarette, right? I know I did. I quit smoking 35 years ago. But when I would say I needed a cigarette, and I tell you what, I needed a lot of cigarettes, okay? I would say I needed a drink. And you know what? I needed a lot of drinks. I would sometimes say I'm only going to drink 2 drinks. Sometimes I did only drink 2 drinks, but sometimes I would drink it all. And yeah. Sometimes people say, I need some chocolate. They will need that sugar rush. That's one of the least ones, right? Some say, I need to shop. I know when I didn't want to deal with conflict and confrontation, I used to shop because somebody would upset me. My husband would upset me, and then I would go in my bedroom sulking because I couldn't stand up to him, right? So I would go in my bedroom sulking with my Spiegel catalog or Newport News. Anybody remember those? So I would go in my bedroom with those, and then I would order myself something nice for my pain. And guess what? I ended up bankrupt. Yeah, because I still ended up divorced, and I still ended up bankrupt. So that these things outside of ourselves don't solve the problem, do they? I need to find somebody. Sometimes I'm working with people and they don't want to look at their own stuff, and they'll be like, I think I'm ready to start dating. I think I need to find somebody. Are we getting our esteem from that? A lot of times that's how we learn to esteem ourselves, is when we think that if I don't have somebody, then I must be a loser, or I must be this. This is these tapes that we make up in our head, because that's totally not true. And sometimes we just want the comfort of somebody else, right? Just the comfort. We think that it's going to bring us comfort. And that's what all of these I needs want. That's what we want, is comfort, right? I need to check my phone. That's a distraction. Sometimes we want to distract from painful things, or from, painful experiences, or what's going on right now. So sometimes what we really want, but sometimes what we really want. What do we mean when we say I need? You don't have internet? Okay. Don't you think that pretending that all the war is somehow okay affects us all subconsciously? I don't really like to talk about the war so much. I can tell you that I don't like war, and in talking about gratitude, is I can see war-torn countries right now that I see rubble, and that makes me sad to see all that rubble instead of trees, instead of kids being able to play in the streets. That's very sad, but I can't focus on that, because is there something that I can do about that? All I can do about that is pray. When I see that, is I can only pray. I don't get to let that run my central nervous system. I can pray about that. And that's about the strongest thing I can do. And politics is sickening sometimes. I agree. So sometimes I need will connect us to something much deeper. Thank you, Lucas. I appreciate that. Sometimes I need can connect us to something much deeper. So we need to listen to ourselves. A lot of time we get mad at other people for not listening to us, but we're not listening to ourselves. I used to, anyway, is I would get mad and say, nobody ever listens to me. But somewhere in our lives, with all the chaos, if we grew up in chaos, somewhere in our lives, in all the chaos, our thoughts were dismissed and our feelings were discarded, because there was other stuff, drama, chaos going on. Maybe, at least in my life, there was so much other drama and chaos going on. I really didn't get to get in touch with my feelings, because I knew fear. That's what I knew. So yeah, I totally understand, Pastor Simpa. Vancity, stop playing. All right, we're not talking about politics on here, Van City. So you're welcome to be here, and I hope that you'll be able to get something out of what I am talking about. But we're not going to talk about politics. Okay. All right. So this is why I have my notes. So please keep your comments nice and respectful in here. And remember, we don't talk about politics, religion, and we don't talk about my age or dating. So that's where our conversation gets interesting, when we get to understand I need this to change how I'm feeling. So if we say this to ourselves when we say I need, and realize, am I needing it to change how I'm feeling? Because an addiction is usually a reward system. It starts off as a reward system or a habit, because a lot of people grow up in homes where that's how I did. Is somebody asked me Monday night, was my addiction, how did I get into my addiction, what caused my addiction? And well, genetically I was prone for addiction, and then also socially, because I saw that that's how certain people in the family handled addiction. That's how we see things. And to be fair and honest, is back in the day, they didn't have as many resources to help with these things as they do nowadays. And people didn't talk about these things like they do nowadays. Oh my goodness, we aren't even talking about all that. I'm not going to address your comments if they're not on the topic, but I do hope that you'll listen to the topic, and if you like it, that you'll like and subscribe. So, what are you addicted to? Is that going to help your addiction for you to point out somebody else's addiction? You've been to treatment twice, Lucas. Well, I hope that it works. Keep going back, keep trying, because you're worth it. You are worth it. So keep going. If you go back out again, but someday you're not gonna, go back out again. Someday it's gonna be okay. I understand. I've known a good many people that it takes what it takes. Because we do. We're some smart people. It's not that we're stupid. We're some smart people. We're some creative people. And so, being creative, we can come up with these, manipulations. We can come up with this rationalization and justification. I haven't used in 29 years now. And I know that today I don't want to risk trying to use. So we're asking, what are you addicted to? And, what are you using? Asking yourself this. You don't have to tell me that. So, yeah. All right. So, what are you using? Are you enjoying something? Are you enjoying it? A lot of people are using, can you say when, most of us, when we're on the phone, can we say we're enjoying it? I mean, I enjoy it. There's times when I enjoy it. Sometimes out of habit, though, we just pick it up. And this is what I'm saying, is these habits that we just pick up, are we actually enjoying it? See, it's an addiction if we're not enjoying it. Are you using it to cope? That I need. Because I used to need to smoke a joint. I used to need to drink. I used to need to do these other things. And that, now I know that the word need, I need to really look at the word need. What do I really need? And sometimes we do need a treat. But the problem is if our reward system turns into a habit, and then it turns into an addiction, right? Because that's usually what happens. That's how it happens. As I was addicted to cigarettes. I started at 14 smoking. I was doing it because my friends at the skating rink were doing it. So we were all smoking cigarettes, and I kept smoking till I was pregnant with my son. And then I quit smoking. So I smoked from 14 to 28, so anyway, to 27. Yeah, it was 28 almost when I had him. So anyway, some of y'all got to go. I'm not playing. I am not playing. All right. I just had to grow up. First time at 21, then 23. Started working, got a nice place, girlfriend, moved in, and changed my lifestyle. 27 now. It's easy to stay right. Good. I'm so happy for you and proud of you, Lucas. I'm glad that you were able to, Well, people do need to be accountable, Pastor Sampa, and there are real victims. But a lot of times, if we stay in that victim mentality, a lot of us have been victims here. But do I want to be called a victim? Do I really want to be called a victim? Do I want to stay in this victim mentality? Because the forgiveness part is forgiving myself for the power that I gave somebody over me to make me be afraid all the time. So I have to forgive myself. Forgiveness of them, it's nice when we can forgive the perpetrators or the predators or what have you. But I don't tell people when you have to forgive somebody, if you have to forgive somebody, but forgiving ourselves, because forgiveness, boundaries, all of these come with ourselves first. And that's how we develop self-esteem, is when we first do it with ourselves. To have expectations of other people doing things is not reasonable expectations, is what I had to learn in my codependency. Because I always hoped that people would see me for the good person that I was. But I was people pleasing and manipulating in that. But I totally understand what you're saying. But I had to learn in recovery that victims stay victims. So I had to forgive myself for the power that what I thought I was victimized of had over me, so that I could be my own hero. Because no one else is going to save me. So I hope that was helpful. Dane, darling, it's good to see you this morning. How are you doing? I missed you. Farkles, good day. All right, I'm not going to address that, Farkles. You're welcome to stay here, but this is a mindset channel, and that just really doesn't work. I am good, thank you. Thank you, Farkles. I know a lot of people blame their parents. A lot of people do blame their parents. And, our parents did the best we could. And, I could blame my parents. I did blame my parents for a long time, is that my addiction, I used to not like my dad because he had all the addictions, So I wanted to judge him, and I did judge him harshly. We had a volatile relationship when I was a teenager and everything. But the real deal is I did turn out like my dad. I am an addict, and did I genetically or socially inherit it? I don't know. But what does matter is that I cannot use, And so that's what matters, is that I can't use, and that I just have to be mindful that, I don't like labels necessarily, but I do know that I'm an addict every day, because that helps me to moderate, because I know when I like something, I need to question myself. Am I saying I need this? Right? Because if I get into a reward, I can decide that I need that reward and become a habit, and then it's going to become an addiction. So thank you for that. Yes. And our parents, to be honest, like when I was growing up, I don't know about you, but our parents didn't necessarily have the resources that we have today to know how to heal these things. They learned from their parents, and they just tried to do better than their parents did. And then, and I wasn't the perfect parent either. My daughter has her resentments with me, I'm sure. And so, I didn't smoke the weed. I didn't drink. She didn't grow up like I did, but she doesn't owe me anything because she didn't grow up like I did, because I'm sure she has something to be mad at me for too, if she wants to, and if not, then not. But, we do have to grow up, like you said earlier. Thank you so much for bringing that up, Lucas. Pastor Simpa, I just used the word victim for communication, so you know whom I was referring to. Okay, thank you. Shankar Kumar, I'm good. How are you? Thank you, Farkles. I'm glad that you're able to, appreciate this. If you like this, please give it a like, you all, if you like this content, and subscribe if you like it. You're back. Hey, Magic by TJ. Okay, just got on to say goodnight. Thank you for telling us goodnight. Breathe, darling. So when we do our breathing, I'll just do one once for you. So at the end of these, we always do our breathing. And what we do is we take that deep breath in and hold it, fill up our tummy and open our heart. Grinch loves the breathing, you can tell. And then we hold it for 4 counts and then release gently and slowly. So at the end of this, we do that 5 times, because what that does is it regulates and regenerates. And with the martial arts, you learn to breathe. That's how I first learned to breathe, was with the martial arts. Just learning to breathe. Because that gives you what? Perseverance, right? Because if somebody's attacking you, most people, when we breathe, we get in our right and divine mind. We can focus, we can concentrate when we breathe. But if we don't breathe, we're not focusing and concentrating. We're afraid, and that fear releases a different hormone and different chemical in our body than when we're breathing. When we're breathing, we're just like staying regular, staying regulated, and regenerating. And regenerating means giving you the energy to keep going. So thank you, Magic by TJ. Your dad used to kick your ass a lot, American Muscle. Well, my dad and I used to brawl pretty good. I grew up in a whole brawling family, so I get it. I get it. Have you done any healing work on it, or how did that affect you? I mean, if you want to tell us here, but if you're not, I totally understand. Farkles, it's nonsense. I just like to hear someone say it. Let it, the heavy shit be airy. Okay. American Muscle, I'm glad he did. You're glad that he beat you up, whooped you? Anyways, good luck. Thank you, Farkles, Pastor Sima. So if someone's parents abused them, they did the best they could, or no. I don't know about all that. I know that we have to let the effect of it, and I've worked with abuse victims of that, and I asked them in the healing process, did you write a letter to the perpetrator? Because no, they're going to be angry. They need to get angry, but the problem is that a lot of times they weren't even permitted to get angry. They just had to take that. And so children learn to adapt, but children have a great imagination. So they make up stories about this. And sometimes they think they deserved it. We've talked about earned and deserved, and that people don't earn or deserve anything like that. So no. What though we do is I teach kids or teach adults how to communicate, because they didn't get to communicate that, because it's proven that when people experience a trauma, especially as a child, but when people experience a trauma and they're not breathing and everything, because we tend not to breathe, but also it stops our thinking. So it stops the part in our brain, the rational part. We can't think. And so what happens is a lot of times I do a tapping exercise, emotional freedom technique with people when we're working with that kind of abuse, because they haven't been able to express the pain. They haven't been able to express the words that they would say to somebody. And sometimes I have to guide them through that. The tapping is like, because telling people that, first off, a lot of people didn't tell about that kind of thing. So the words weren't used. So being able to tell and to express the anger, to express the pain, to be able to express, and then to turn to regulate. Because what that does is the tapping, the emotional freedom technique, de-escalates that thinking pattern so that we can stop ruminating in that and stop feeling it over and over and over again and letting that have power over us. I'm not saying that we heal from the whole thing, because your mind is going to remember it. But I'm saying your body gets to heal from the trauma of it a little bit, somewhat. I can't say when and how people are going to heal, but I know that people have found that tapping very beneficial in that kind of trauma, and even in other kind of situations where a child didn't get to be seen or heard. The tapping helps them heal the inner child wound that they have. So I know we say how parents did the best they could. Yeah. Some of them, maybe they didn't. And I'm not talking about those parents. I don't know. I'm thinking probably they experienced that. And if not, that's a type of evil that we just won't understand, So staying focused on what I can understand and healing what I didn't understand. All right, American Muscle, but we're not going to talk about that. I'm not going to give into that, but that's not what our topic is. Lucas, once you stop blaming and forgive, accept your faults and be grateful more than anything. Absolutely. That helped me a great deal, Lucas. Yeah, breathing, praying, saying, I don't know, because some things are just not my business. And, that not blaming and forgiving. Because my old psyche can go back to that, but we learn to catch ourselves, and then it gets to, once we learn to catch ourselves and change that neural pathway, we're not doing it as much. We're learning to take our power back. All right, thank you, Pastor Simpa. Thank you, Magic by TJ. Okay, I look forward to it. I'll be back on here Friday night at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I hope to see you there. Pammy, it's good to see you. Y'all also in supporting people here. You know, if you haven't signed up for Pam, Pam has had an amazing journey and a harrowing journey. She is her own hero too, and she's overcome a lot of things. And so she gives some helpful tips about how to take care of your health, and she takes you on adventures. She gets to go on a good many adventures and show you how you can implement these things into your everyday life. So I encourage you to give Pammy a follow if you're on the health journey, and thinking about that kind of consciousness. Because when we get health conscious, it's a consciousness too. Salma, it's good to see you. I'm so glad to see you. How are you doing? Started going to therapy on a consistent basis. Awesome. I'm happy to hear that, Salma. So yes, thank you for sharing that, Pastor Sempa, because we always love to say that whatever happens, everyone did the best they could, no matter what they do. And I love that everyone is brainwashed with this idea and repeats it like a mantra. Well, I understand that's probably disappointing. Jonathan, my wife is an EFT practitioner, and it does help. That's good to hear. See? It's weird at first, right? A lot of people are like, it's weird, but some of my clients that really like it, and some of them are like, I have to do I start their dialogue a lot, but then I have to finish, do their dialogue, and I'll be like, how do y'all feel now? Because they're like, this is just weird, Stacy. But I think they still get it, though, even though I have to do it for them. Pastor Sempa, people get there when they get there. They do. You are very welcome, darling. I saw you were getting ready to go back to school. You were testing your equipment. You're doing great, getting all the equipment and everything. Very cool. I hope you're going to have an amazing school year. So we're talking about addiction again this morning, and I have my notes this morning, so I'm so glad. So I'm going to go back to them. I've enjoyed reading the comments here. Thank you all so much for your valuable input. I appreciate it. And yeah, thanks, Pam. Are the kids or the students are back at school? Oh, okay. So when we're asking what are you addicted to, we're going to ask what are you using? Well, Rob, you can go to another channel if you want. Thank you so much. I hope that this will help you. But are you enjoying something, or are you using it to cope? Are you reaching for something because you genuinely want it? We talked about all the different types of addictions. And so we may say, I want this, but are we saying I need it or I want it? And are we distracting ourselves with the want? And, so being clear on what our motivation is, our intentions and motivations. I talked about that also on Monday, about how the addictions are, the powerlessness and unmanageability, and then it's also the obsession and compulsion. But then when we start healing from this and start staying clean and sober, or whatever it is, clean and sober, or the food addiction, being mindful of, am I eating for nutrition or am I eating to cope? Am I doing this for whatever, or am I doing it to cope? Am I distracting myself with this? Well, there's certainly some safety aspects to addiction, as it is coping. It is coping. So, or are we reaching for something because we don't want to feel what we're feeling? So being able to make that distinction, because food is something we need. We have to eat. A person can enjoy a cigarette, and someone can enjoy a drink, and someone can genuinely want a relationship, and someone can love shopping. And none of those things automatically make someone addicted. Mm-hmm. So the question is, what happens when the choice starts disappearing? I talked about the decision earlier. And the decision helps us make a choice. Pastor Sempa, Lucas wants you to define unsafe. I think he was talking about the earlier abuse, Lucas, that maybe some people experience. And so this isn't actually a therapy session. This isn't a coaching session. So there's only so much I can address here to be mindful of everybody's time. But if you would like a coaching session, then you're able to email me in the description box in here. I have my email there. But yeah, it's not about the unsafe relationship with parents today. It's about addressing our own addiction. It may have came from an unsafe relationship with parents. I'm not saying that it didn't, but that's not what we're talking about right this moment. So I'm going to stay in these notes. Not authentic. We were all born with our authenticity, and we were all born worthy and divine. Now, there's things that happened in between the birth time and where we are now, and oftentimes we need to heal from those things that they may have had us think that less than worthy and valuable and divine. So it's about restoring ourselves to that before this life is over, but it takes the time. So, when the choice starts disappearing, right? We find ourselves doing something we said we weren't going to do, right? I'm not going to do this anymore. This is going to be my last pack of cigarettes. This is going to be my last. I'm not drinking anymore after this. And I could quit drinking for a couple of weeks. Lucas, are you asking me? I am from the U.S. I'm from Fort Worth, Texas, but I'm sitting near beautiful Cancun, Mexico. Yeah, they do say in addiction, the hole in our soul, because it is a hole in our soul, because our soul remembers who we are, but we bury things on top of it. And so, yeah, we do try to fill the hole in our soul. I see what you're saying, Pastor Simpa. So when we start reaching for something, even though we really don't want the consequences, right? Is if we're addicted to food, it's like, am I reaching for something that's going to put pounds on me? What should I name what I'm reaching for? See, when I'm talking to people and I'm working with people about taking pounds off, it's like, what would you name that pound? Would you name that pound insecurity? Would you name that pound bully? All the times you got bullied? Oh, you're asking him? So thank you, Lucas. So that's what I have people naming that pound. Because in my recovery, I learned to name it, what it is. What is it I'm trying to hide? What is it that's my fear? Because a lot of us were afraid to address those things that we tried to hide in the fears. But see, I couldn't save my face and my behind at the same time. That was the thing, is I had to learn to get honest with myself about my fears. And sometimes they didn't sound rational, because there was this mature Stacy, and then there was this inner child Stacy that needed to be healed. And to learn not to blame my parents. That was through working that step work. I did do a 12-step program. So it was through working step work that I've gotten to peel those layers of pain off. So when we start saying, I need this, that's where I want us to become more curious. So today, let's look underneath the behavior. Because like I said, there's transference of addiction. Once I stopped the drugs and the alcohol and was trying to be a good person, I started shopping. Hiding things. Again, hiding things. And then after the shopping, I guess I got into that, I had to work on the codependency and the love addiction. So it just it was on a journey for me getting to know myself. Because that's the best adventure we're going to take, is the one that we get to know ourselves. Our whys. Our WHY apostrophe S make us wise. WISE. So that's we may not be able to figure out other people, Pastor Simpa, but we can figure out ourselves if we're willing to take the journey to find the divine within us, instead of blaming anybody, like you said, for stuff. So today, let's look underneath the behavior, not to judge it, not to label ourselves, but to ask, what does this give me? So I ask sometimes my clients, responsees, what is the payoff? What's the payoff here? What feeling does it change? Because sometimes we look for evidence that we're not enough. And that sounds crazy, but I know I did it, so I know that I'm not the only one that looked for evidence that I wasn't enough. That's that comparison part, right? So what am I trying not to feel? What am I trying not to feel? So because sometimes something that began as a way to cope can eventually become something we have to cope with, right? So that's what we're exploring today, the I need. Are you enjoying it, or are you using it? So this is where I want us to start paying attention to the words, how we often say, again, I need a cigarette, I need a drink, I need some chocolate, I need to go shopping, I need to find somebody, I need sex, I need to check my phone, I need to see what's happening, I need to know what they're doing. Obsessions, right? that turns to obsessions. So now sometimes I need is just a phrase. But when we start being conscious of this, sometimes this tells us something different, that there's a difference between I enjoy smoking rather than I need a cigarette when I'm stressed. So there's a difference between I'd like a drink and I need a drink after the day I've had. And there's a difference between I'd like to meet someone and I can't stand being alone. I need somebody. And that's where I want us to get curious, is are you enjoying what you're doing, or are you using it? Is it, replacing something else? Like I said, when I quit smoking, I replaced. I got some candles and I got some lotion so my hands would smell good, and some candles so my house would smell good. There is a replacement. And even with food addiction, is that we learn to replace that with healthy living. We learn to replace it with walking, because a lot of times it gets to where we can't walk even comfortably. We replace it with walking. We replace it with healthy food that isn't saturated in salt and chemicals. So there's a difference between, we do have to eat, but we get to choose. That's the decision and the choice we get to make. So that's where I want us to get curious. Are you using it? Are you enjoying it? Because sometimes the behavior isn't really about the behavior. The cigarette may be about calming down. The drink may be about escaping the day. The food may be about comfort. Shopping may be about excitement or distraction. Dating may be about not having to feel alone. Sex may be about validation or connection. And chaos may give us something to focus on. Being needed may give us a sense of worth. Social media may give us validation or connection. Doomsday scrolling may give us the illusion that we're preparing ourselves for what might happen. So comparison may give us a way to measure whether we're okay. So the question becomes this: what job have I given this behavior, right? That's where the, need comes in, is like what job? The obsession, need and obsession. So what does it do for me? When I've talked earlier about what is the payoff? Thank you, Lucas. I appreciate that. Spartacus, thank you so much. I appreciate that, because the reason I have a reading is I want to stay on topic and also be able to look at your comments, because your comments are very valuable, and I thank you all for participating in this. So I spend time writing this stuff that I'm reading, Spartacus, so thank you. So what feeling does it help me avoid? What am I reaching for when I don't want to sit with what I'm feeling, right? So because this is where something that started as a coping tool can begin something that we're dependent upon. And that doesn't mean that yes, this is about addiction. Thank you, Spartacus. That's why I keep it there, because a lot of times the conversation can shift and drift to a lot of places. So I have to have my notes so I can stay focused, because people's time is valuable. You're valuable. And so what I'm trying to do is give people the most important information in the shortest amount of time, but I still go a lot of time because I enjoy the comments, but I have to stay focused too. Okay, that doesn't mean that every cigarette and every drink and every dessert and every shopping trip or every desire for a relationship is an addiction. It doesn't mean that it is. We're not going to turn everything people enjoy into pathology. We're going to become honest and curious, though. That's what I want us to do. So, because there's a difference between I want this and I need this in order to feel okay. So a lot of addictions, like I said, begin as a reward or a treat, and that can then become a habit, and that progression is to addiction. You love cigarettes? Well, if you're enjoying cigarettes, then that's fine, but is it causing you health trouble? A lot of times we're like, oh, not me, not me. We talked about the sea of denial, and a lot of times we don't realize, that when we're smoking, we are at risk for stroke. My mom just had a stroke a few years ago, and she was smoking. And sometimes people have strokes that don't smoke. I totally get the rationalization and justification is that we don't know. Sometimes people don't have strokes. I had a father-in-law, he smoked till he was 86 years old, and he didn't have any stroke. So we just don't know. It's just the risk. Do we have the genetic factor that's going to counter into that? All right, that's excellent. I talk with a lot of people on here who had to give up smoking because, their air quality. So, when we talk about gratitude and the air quality, I'm listening as I drive to work. I start enjoying my mornings with Stacy. Ah, thank you, Pammy. I enjoy when you get to be here. So, regular rewards and regular habits don't have the obsessive and compulsive habits of addiction. Okay? Addiction is a continuing and progressive, cunning and baffling and powerful. It's going to continue. I thought I could stop mine by going to one meeting, or I thought I could stop mine by switching drugs, or I thought I could stop mine by switching this, or I thought I could stop mine. Yeah, Grinch is all out today. Usually at night times, right? When you've been on here, Raven. So in the daytime, he's out. And at nighttime, he's like, I'm going to bed. So I'm glad you got to see the Grinch. So we lose the capacity in addiction to make decisions. Addictions will make the decisions for us and keep us trapped and imprisoned in our minds, bodies, and burying our souls. That is a parrot. This is Quaker. Hello, Samir. This is my Grinch. We lose the capacity. Okay, I already said that part. And burying our souls. We're almost done, y'all. So thank you all for being here today. The addiction will overtake us before we know what happens. So recovering takes time. It is so worth it, though. So Friday, if you all can join me at 6 p.m., what we're going to talk about is it's not hurting anybody, because a lot of people think their addiction is inconsequential, that meaning that it's not hurting anybody else. And so I'm not trying to guilt anybody into saying this. I'm just trying to break that illusion that sometimes we think I'm only hurting myself. Oh, those African Greys can really talk. Grinch can't talk like it. Does your African Grey talk? Because they are so smart, those African Greys. They can even mimic to sound like the people in the house, right? So, yeah. So did y'all find this to be helpful today? John London, did you stay here or did you have to leave? And so, yeah, I appreciate you all for being here, and I hope that this was helpful. Thank you, DJ35. 300 words plus. Oh, wow. I bet, because they are so smart. They sound like, my friend Carolyn, her mom had an African Grey, and Carolyn would be upstairs and she would hear that African Grey say, Carolyn! And Carolyn said, I'd come running down the stairs and it'd be that bird. But that bird sounded like her mom. Smoking, yeah. Where did I get my parrot? I got my parrot in Dallas, Texas. Dallas, Texas. Grinch is 10 years plus. He's 10 and a half years old almost. So, yeah. All right, y'all. So when we do this breathing at the end, and I hope, that, like, if you're a smoker, you're going to quit when you want to quit. That's the way I was. I chain smoked before I quit smoking. It was $125, DJ. $125 10 years ago, Grinch was. So when people used to tell me, Stacy, you need to quit smoking, because I was a chain smoker. I smoked a lot. And they'd be like, and I didn't want to quit smoking. It takes what it takes for us to want to quit smoking. And I hope that, if you do want to quit smoking, that you're able to do it sooner than later. Your Gray is 11? Yeah. Yeah, they're amazing. Birds have a personality. This is my first pet, my first bird that I've had, and I'm not going to get another one after this. He may live 10, 15 more years. Yeah. If and when you're ready. That's right. You got to quit when you're ready. That's what I told people, Spartacus, is I was like, I'll quit when I'm ready. And when I got pregnant, I got ready. But had I not got pregnant, would I have quit? Probably not. So I'm not preaching. So you see this parrot ate in prison. This parrot flies around the house all day long. It's a Quaker parrot, so they don't get very big. All right, y'all. So we're going to breathe. And what breathing does is, like I was saying earlier, when I started taking martial arts, I learned that the breathing would give me perseverance. Yeah, that's why I love Paris. Smoking is still okay. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of places, even down here in Mexico, they have some smoking rules. Like, you can smoke in certain places, but there's places you can't smoke in. Yeah, yours will live a long time. The little ones aren't going to live as long as the bigger ones, but it seems like the bigger they are, the longer they live. Yeah, they talk, the Grinch Grinch could live 20, 25 years. He might live over 25 years, but my Shih Tzu died last year on August 9th, and she was 17, and their normal lifespan is about 15. So she made it 2 more years longer than, is expected. Paris smoking is still okay, yeah. I hope to get to France next year. So, all right. Let's do some breathing. It's regulation and regeneration. And yeah, I love my breathing. I learned to do it in martial arts to give me perseverance. And then I also learned it when I was in, therapy and having my coaches that breathe in, because we get in our divine mind, our right mind, and that's what helps us to focus. So we have more focus and stamina with the breath. So we're going to take 5 breaths. We're going to breathe totally in. Your shoulders will rise. You'll fill up your tummy. And then Grinch loves the breathing. And then your heart is open. They made it taboo to smoke while there are way worse things out there than smoking. Yeah. And then I think turtles have to be put in wheels. Not quite sure, but I was told by someone who owned a turtle because they live so long. Turtles do live a long time. We used to have a turtle, and it now is in the park thing with other turtles, which it needed to be. But when we bought the house here in Mexico, there was a turtle that came with it, and that turtle could live forever. But now it lives in the wildlife place. So we're going to breathe, and then we'll hold it for 4 counts if you can. Just do your best, though. And then we're going to release the breath gently and slowly out of the mouth. What you're going to notice is this is going to slow things down. You're going to get in the present moment. Taking this breath right now, you may hear things that you hadn't really heard while you were breathing before. You may feel your heartbeat. If you're a person who's busy, going all the time, if you take five breaths, 5 minutes, 5 breaths, you just don't know the value of that. Samir, I bet that parrot likes, no, because there's no cigarettes around that parrot. I haven't had cigarettes in 35 years. Alrighty? So let's do some breathing. That parrot likes to eat everything that I eat, though, because birds live in a flock. And so this bird says I'm part of its flock. So when I eat an egg in the morning, the bird eats eggs too. Whatever I eat for lunch, the bird eats that too. So, you know how birds are. He has his own food, but he likes mine better. So we're going to do 5 of these, but I encourage you that anytime you're stressed, they also recommend breathing for when people have anxiety, because it puts you in the present moment instead of that catastrophizing and that fear, so it helps. And also, even in pain, I was up in the plane and I was congested and my ears started hurting, and I just breathed into it and I forgot about the pain. So let's do some breathing. Here we grow, 5 of them. I'm not going to keep you on here all day. After the breathing, we can go. But I thank y'all so much for being here. I thank you all who've liked and subscribed with this video. I just always appreciate this supportive community, and I'm grateful for you. Talking about gratefulness. So let's take a deep breath in. Fill up your tummy, shoulders rise. Look how smart you look. Your heart's open. Hold it. And release. Breathe in. Hold it. And release. Breathe. Hold it. 2 more. Breathe in. Hold it. Release. Breathe. Hold it. And release. So in karate, when I started learning breathing, it was to give me perseverance. It was to give me stamina and focus. Oh, you're very welcome, Spartacus. But then in therapy, when I did it, it was to help me feel safe. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Spartacus. And Samir, we're about to be off. The subject was addiction today. Do I want it or do I need it? Knowing the difference between want and need, and what our obsessions are if we're obsessing. Oh yeah, the breathing. And then in therapy, when I learned breathing, it was to help me feel safe, because sometimes I could be all in my mind and I didn't feel safe because of the other things that have happened, or whatever. I learned to catastrophize, to anticipate, and to strategize, right? And so I had to learn to feel safe in my body when things were still. So I guess you could say there was an addiction to chaos too, right? That's addiction to chaos, kind of, when we're afraid for things to be still. So I hope that this has been helpful for folks today. I sure do appreciate you all being here today. And Grinch does too, don't you? Yeah. So we just appreciate you being here today, and thank you so much for participating in this live, your comments, however you got to show up here, however long you got to show up, or whether you watch later. I want to thank you so much, and I'll be back on here Friday night at 6 p.m., and we're going to talk about I'm not hurting anybody. All right? All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Bye.